All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're jumping into a really big idea, corporate social responsibility. And we're going to do it by looking at this incredible real-world experiment, one that's actually changing how a whole country thinks about what a business is even for.
So let's just start with the big question right up front. What do companies really owe us? Is it just about making good products and turning a profit? Or is there something more? This question, right here, is the absolute heart of what we're talking about today.
And that something more has a name, corporate social responsibility, or CSR. The key concept to grab onto is something called the triple bottom line. The idea is, instead of just obsessing over profit, a truly successful company needs to think about its impact on people and on the planet too. It's a whole new way of defining what success looks like.
Now, while companies all over the world talk about CSR, India went and did something pretty radical. It took this idea from being a voluntary, kinda nice-to-do thing and turned it into a mandatory legal requirement.
What's just wild is how fast this all went down. I mean, look at this timeline. In 2009, CSR in India was basically just a suggestion. By 2011, it was more of an apply it or tell us why you didn't kind of policy. And then bam, just 2 years later, Section 135 makes it the law of the land. That leap from a suggestion to a rule was a genuine world first.
So what does this game-changing law actually say? Let's get into the nitty-gritty and decode the rule.
Okay, so here it is, the number that really changed the game, 2%. That's it. The law says that companies that qualify have to spend 2% of their average net profits from the past 3 years on these CSR projects. You know, it sounds like a simple number, but its impact, absolutely massive.
So who actually has to follow this rule? Well, it's not for every little mom-and-pop shop. The law really targets the bigger players. To give you some perspective, the lowest threshold kicks in at a net profit of about 600,000 US dollars, or a turnover of over 120 million. If a company hits any one of these benchmarks, they're in.
And where's all that 2% supposed to go? Well, the law doesn't just leave it open. There's a list called Schedule 7 that guides the spending. And it's focused on huge national priorities, things like fighting hunger and poverty, boosting education, promoting gender equality, and working on environmental sustainability. The idea is to point all that corporate money toward real development goals.
The law is also super clear about what isn't CSR. Things like giving bonuses to your own employees or making donations to political parties. Nope, those don't count. This is all about making sure the money is actually going outwards to benefit society as a whole, not just for the company's internal gain or political clout.
Okay, so this brings us to a much deeper, kind of trickier part of the whole story. When you make being good a law, you walk right into a massive ethical question. I mean, really think about that for a second. If you're forced to do a good deed, does it carry the same moral weight? Is a company being ethical just because it's following the law? Or is the real ethical moment in the choice to do good? This is a serious philosophical can of worms. You can look at this from two classic ethical angles, right? First, there's the utilitarian view. It's all about the results. If the law creates less poverty and a healthier environment, then great, it's ethical because it produced the most good for the most people. But then there's the deontology view, and this one is all about the intention. It says that true morality comes from freely choosing to do the right thing. So from this perspective, forcing a company's hand might not be ethical at all.
And just to make it more interesting, let's add a third lens here, contractarianism. This framework sees morality as a kind of social contract or agreement. From this view, CSR is ethical if it serves everyone's interests. Society gets help, and in return, the company gets to operate in a healthier, more stable community. As you can see, there's just no easy single right answer.
And this quote just nails it. It basically says, look, whether mandatory CSR is ethical isn't a fact you can work up. It totally depends on what moral framework you're using. You can't just say one is better than the other. It really captures that tension between forcing a good outcome and valuing a good intention.
Okay, enough with the theory. Let's get our feet on the ground. What does this law actually look like when it meets real people? Let's leave the abstract policy behind and dive into a really powerful human story.
So picture this. It's during the COVID-19 lockdown in a region near the city of Pune.
For the local tribal communities there, their entire livelihood pretty much depends on harvesting and selling this one thing, the Herta berry. It's a really valuable forest product. But with the lockdown, they were totally cut off from their markets and were being forced to sell their harvest for pennies just to get by.
And this is exactly where a company's mandatory CSR spending made a real difference. Tata Motors stepped in. But they didn't just write a check. They helped these 400 families get organized and form a proper farmers-producer organization, an FPO. And with that, they could pool everything they harvested, cut out the exploitative middlemen, and sell their Herta berries in bulk for a much, much fairer price.
And the result? Just wow. The new organization sold 25 tons of fruit, which brought in about $60,000 for the community. And this wasn't just a one-time handout. This created a sustainable, quarterly income for every single family, giving them a foundation of financial security that would last long after the crisis passed.
The whole project was driven by the company's core philosophy, more from less for more. It's this idea that you don't just throw money at a problem. You use your resources smartly to empower a community to help itself. And that's the real difference between just charity and creating sustainable development.
So we kind of end up back where we started, but with a whole new perspective. Indira took this massive, bold step and legally changed what it means to be a corporation. And the results, as we just saw, can be life-changing. It leaves us with one last, really big question to chew on. What does this mean for the future? And what should we, as a global society, start expecting from the companies of tomorrow?